You can go to a healthcare facility with a disease, get treated for that disease, and live with a new disease because the person who treated you couldn't wash their hands with soap and water. 88% lack basic sanitation and 57% lack hand washing facilities with soap. And about 50% of all schools in Nigeria do not have basic water and sanitation facilities. This poor access to these basic life-saving services has adverse implications on education, health, nutrition, and poverty, amongst other things. In response to this crisis, WaterAid Nigeria and her partners implemented a citizens' engagement project called the Vote for Wash campaign, which focused on leveraging on the 2019 general elections to educate and empower citizens to effectively demand for the actualization of their wash rights from duty bearers. While the campaign was a success, with 120 people signed pledge cards from electoral aspirants, experience has shown us that many campaign promises in the past have been largely unfulfilled, unmet, and without clear and convincing plans for actualizing them. Development is impossible without good governance and institutions that can be held accountable to deliver on their roles and responsibilities. This is what we hope to do with the Keep Your Promises campaign, to empower citizens to use the media and other accountability platforms to follow up with elected officials in demanding for transparent and accountable governance and influence reforms in the wash sector. We will use the platform to engage elected officials on the importance of wash to development and keep them accountable to their commitments on increasing budget allocation for wash services, as well as to effectively utilize appropriated funds. If the campaign promises on wash are implemented, it will contribute to responding to the state of emergency in the wash sector declared by the federal government of Nigeria last year and for which a national action plan has been set in motion. WaterAid is calling on all elected officials to work towards changing the narrative on water and sanitation services in Nigeria by ensuring increased investment in the wash sector and focusing on providing both public and institutional wash facilities to cater to the needs of Nigerians, most especially for the poorest and most marginalized who suffer most from a lack of access to these facilities and services. We also call on the media and civil society organizations to support this process by continuing to advocate for improved wash access and promote citizen engagement to deliver on sustainable wash services. Nigerians have a huge role to play in the success of this campaign and in wash governance in the country. We must hold our government accountable and demand for our rights to water and sanitation. When elected, public officials and institutions are held accountable and governance is transparent, it increases the likelihood that these institutions and public officials will deliver on their mandate. At current rates of progress in Nigeria, we are still a long way, and in fact, off track from achieving the promise of Sustainable Development Goal 6 and ensuring clean water and sanitation for all. But together we can make clean water, decent toilets, and good hygiene normal for everyone, everywhere within a generation. I'm actually supposed to stop the speech here, but I said I'll go a little beyond the speech. Because when you have the media, it's an opportunity to really bring the numbers alive. 55 million people are at risk of losing their lives. And it's something that's not acceptable. And we say that 160 million people do not have toilets. And then we also say that 40 million people defecate in the open. Open defecation means that you go do your business outside. If you're a guy, you have to pull down your trousers. If you're a woman, you're wearing trousers, you have to pull down your trousers in the public domain. Your dignity is gone, and that's not acceptable. We really have to continue to talk about this, put it in the public domain until government does something. It says that 110 million people do not wash their hands. Let me tell you what that means. It means that even if you do have access to places where you can wash your hands, you are at risk of dying from contamination from somebody who didn't wash their hands. For example, you buy groundnuts. Can you think for a minute that the person selling groundnuts to you used the toilet but has nowhere to wash their hands? It means you are eating what you don't understand. So when WaterAid is talking about access to wash, it's everybody's business. It's about human life, it's about everybody's survival, it's about our collective well-being.
Politicians have committed, and we must ensure that we follow through with their commitment. Good governance is about supply and demand, and the economic equilibrium is when there is much pressure from citizens-led organization and group like this, then politicians would have no other option than to supply good governance for citizens. I'm quite excited because as a young person, we were able to mobilize over 12 million young people, particularly in Edo State, Lagos State, and Kano State, to engage with their politicians who ran for offices. I remember one incident where the governor of Lagos State, via social media, committed that if elected into office, he was going to ensure that he increased investments in the wash sector. I believe that now is the time to put actions to those words. And I believe that now more than ever before, knowing that in Lagos State, for instance, that have a population of over 23 million, over half that population do not have access to wash services. I want to end by saying that Connected Development is committed to working with WaterAid, Wash Media, and other partners to ensure that in the lead up to 2023, we would ensure that the pictures is not as bleak as it is today. Nigeria can no longer afford to ensure that we don't tackle this crisis. Why? Why? Because this cost us 1.7 billion naira annually. We can no longer afford this crisis. It's better for us to tackle it and ensure that every citizen, and this is a right issue, it's not a privilege. Everyone has a right to access to water, sanitation, and hygiene. Thank you.
If we have a situation whereby we have under 5 child dead of about 60,000, that's a big challenge. And that means we all need to rise up to the occasion and know what to do. This meeting is about keeping and making sure we follow up and putting the pressure on the government or whoever is in place to make sure that what they have promised, they are doing it. I want this message to go out, particularly with all my colleagues, that any promise you fail to make is the problem you will face tomorrow. Please, let's take note of that. We need to let them know that if they've made promises and they are not doing it, which has been like that before, then we need to put on the pressure for every one of them to say, no, you've said this and you must do this. And that is why this meeting is quite important, that every one of us, as journalists, particularly as advocates, to make sure that things are right, we need to put it down. And so I want to commend our effort. Of course, we've done a lot of work in terms of making sure that these reports are there in the ear. People are talking about it in radio stations, in television stations, and in the newspapers. And we must keep on the light. We must keep on doing this to make sure that the message is passed, the promises are kept. The people who have been elected into positions are doing what they promised to do, particularly when it's in the area of water and sanitation. Not only in Abuja, every part of Nigeria. And I want to encourage WaterAid not to relent on their efforts to make sure that these promises are also kept by them, following it up, even with the media. You can ask questions. Not only the media should ask, you can also ask questions and say how far we've gone. And we will tell you that we've done a lot. So it's an opportunity to be here this morning. And I believe that after this meeting, we are going out there again to tell the world, to tell the politicians that what they've promised, they needed to do it. Thank you so much.
According to UN report, 50% of Nigeria's population who stay in the urban center live in slums. And I also want to charge each and every one of us that out of the 100% of persons in this room, over 50 of us are coming from the suburbs. So these issues we're talking about today are not very far from us. Just yesterday, we were in Mpape community. We've worked in Mabuchi. And these are where the workforce draws from. Abuja draws its workforce from these areas: Mpape, Maraba, Karu, Mabuchi. And in these places, when you move in, you would hardly find toilets. You would hardly find adequate water for the people to use. And let me also paint a picture clearly with the figure that says 116 million Nigerians do not have access to toilets. It therefore means that for 200 million population in Nigeria, of persons in Nigeria, that more than half of Nigerians don't have access to toilets. This is something that each and every one of us have a duty to play. We have a duty that we must answer to. And what we're doing today is not strange. We've worked in Mabuchi community, an urban slum in the FCT. And what we have done for them is to help the community develop what we call a charter of demand. And part of the things contained in that charter of demand are toilet issues around wash. And just recently, we were with the people of Mabuchi alongside to meet with their councillor at the Abuja Municipal Area Council, AMAC. And I want to say here this morning that just 5 days after we went in to do an advocacy and show him the situation of things in Mabuchi, that as we speak, the councillor is already constructing toilets in the community. So it shows that when citizens rise up to the occasion, if you don't demand, then there will be no supply, okay? And it has to go beyond just demanding, so that they don't give us just anything because we asked for toilet. We need to be very specific on the things that we need them to do. So one of the things we're going to be doing is to ensure that we monitor the process such that it doesn't come back to be what it was before now. So if you're giving them toilet, it has to be a toilet that meets modern facilities and not just any kind of toilet. So today, we're committing to ensure that we would walk around urban slums in the FCT and its environs to ensure that citizens, first of all, recognize that the duty bearers owe them that responsibility to meet their demands, and they are not doing them a favor, and they have to lead the process. Thank you very much.
Waterhead has actually given us this opportunity for us to pass this message across to citizens in Nigeria to make sure that we are actually working together to make sure we prioritize on wash, because water, they say, is essential to life, and without all these basics or essential needs, we are actually going down, diminishing in our health. So thank you very much, and together I want us to go out there, make sure that we spread this news, we see the importance of this campaign, because we need it. We need it. Thank you very much, everyone.